Chris, guess what day it is?
It is the first of the new year.
New Year.
Can you hear that? The first of the new year.
First, the first day of the new year, 2025. And people get really excited about all this stuff. And for me, it's just another day.
It's just another day, but it also marks the passage of time.
It does. It really does.
It's amazing where that year went. What's
What?
the saying? What crawls? No. Yeah, what crawls for a baby walks for a man and runs for an old man. It's a riddle. I think it's maybe even from like the Lord of the Rings, or not the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit.
Oh,
What crawls for a baby walks for a man and runs for an old man.
I don't know.
Time.
Time. Just time passes by and we're unable to go backwards. We can go forwards at a
It
pretty
goes
good
faster too,
speed.
right? The more you have to draw upon, you think about it. When you're 10 years old, 1 year is 10% of your life.
Yeah,
When you're 50 years old, 1 year is 2% of your life. It's a very big difference.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, the time definitely appears to slow down and speed up depending on what you're doing and your circumstances. I found that you got to pay attention, otherwise just time gets away from you.
Yes, I can admit,
So,
I can agree to that.
so let's talk about something. Let's talk about something that everybody does, and I think it's a bad idea in general, but I did it anyways. New Year's resolutions.
Oh crap! I need my notebook.
Okay, go
I'm gonna
get.
go grab my notebook.
Okay.
I wrote this down. Alrighty.
All right. Well, did you set any New Year's resolutions?
I set some goals,
Some goals.
and I
Okay.
set some values that I want to reinforce.
Okay. Values.
Yeah, I figure things like showing appreciation, gratitude.
Okay.
I want to be much better at that than I am. Um, I somehow, we come from an era where we're not, men aren't supposed to show emotions,
Okay.
right? You're supposed to tamp down on all that kind of stuff. And I've always tied gratitude with an emotion.
Oh, okay.
And therefore, I've been pretty bad at sharing. It's almost like, well, of course you're going to do that. I expect you to do that. That's your job. That's your responsibility. As opposed to say, and it doesn't take anything out of me to say thank you for it, and take a moment and not just say thank you, but say it in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Because I can just say thank you and then it's done.
Yeah.
But to say thank you in a way that shows an understanding of the effort that went into it or the thought that went into it, I think
Yes.
is
Yes.
is important.
Yes.
So I want to be able to do that extra step and not just do the polite, thing to do, the showing manners or good manners or the like, but actually have a way to show that appreciation.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get at.
Yeah.
And tied to that, I think generosity. I
Oh,
think there's a level of generosity that goes with that I need to expand on.
okay. All right. So how are you going to do it? Hang on, let me set the stage for you. Let me set the stage because we're gonna go into that, right? So there was a guy. I worked with him for a few years. His name was David Marquet, and he was commander or captain of a nuclear-powered attack submarine. And so many people came to visit his submarine. So he wanted to create a more professional environment in the submarine. So he thought to himself, when somebody comes into the to visit my submarine, what would they have to see to believe that it's a professional environment? And so his kind of whole big idea was act your way to new thinking. And so one of the things that he did is like in the I don't know command center. I've never been in a submarine, so I don't know for sure. But there's a command center where all the sonar and everybody's talking about stuff. And he goes, typically, what happens is everybody's like totally like slouched back in their seat, and it doesn't look very professional. So what he did is he made a rule that said butts must be to the back of the seat where everybody's sitting up straight. And just that one rule just made it appear that they're operating at a much more professional level. So, with all that set up in mind, what are you going to do if, like, I was watching you? What are you going to do differently that I would think that you're showing gratitude?
That you would think that I'm showing gratitude.
Yeah, or it could be me, or could be somebody
So
else that you want to show
I
gratitude
think
to.
I think what I need to do is build in the thought process of why I would show gratitude, right? If I think about it, I can do it, and I will do it, and I'll
Okay,
say,
yeah,
it'll be more than just the thanks.
yeah,
It'll be a sentence. It'll be two sentences that acknowledge what I'm thanking you for,
yeah,
right? Thanks just me is just a polite thing. It could actually be meaningful or not.
yeah,
But thank you for blank,
yeah,
right? That actually shows a level of thought that goes into it beyond. And so what I want to do is to build in a step in my thinking. Maybe it's to slow down and instead of just triggering the thanks response, actually think, I want to say thanks. What do I want to say thanks for? Is it just to be polite, or can I make it be something else?
yeah,
And so I need to build in that step in there, which I think I need to default to the idea of saying more than just getting by with politeness. It's the same thing like when someone says, "How are you today?" and you say, "Fine,"
yeah.
right? That's just politeness. It has nothing. Are you really fine or not? It doesn't really matter. You say fine.
It doesn't mind,
So
right?
I think that's another. It's another place where you can break up the sheer social politeness to actually be more meaningful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. So you want to change your behavior
Hmm.
because you don't feel like you're grateful enough, and so that's one thing you want to
I
change.
don't feel like I express. Yeah, I don't think I'm grateful enough because I think what happens is if I think about it, I can identify what it is I'm thankful for. If I go to a coffee shop and the person makes me coffee, I say
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah,
Why do I care? Why is it meaningful? Why should I say thanks?
yeah,
Is
right.
it because it's polite, or is it thanks for making my cup of coffee? Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for what is it that I'm thanking them for?
Yeah,
And I think if I get better at saying that, it'll it'll actually come to mind faster. It won't be a step anymore. It'll just be something I can blow through because it'll just happen.
yeah,
But right now, it's a step. It's a conscious step that I have to think. Oh, what is it I'm thanking them for?
yeah, yeah. What did they do for you that made your day a little better? Or what did they do for you, right?
Yeah, and if I can level it up beyond just the hey, you made coffee for me to hey, you made me feel better today, or you gave me a great start to the day, and actually turn it into something that has more of a positive impact for them,
Yeah,
that would be ideal.
yeah.
But I think that's like advanced level. Right now, I just need to recognize them for what for that acknowledgement.
Yeah, and I think that's really good because I know that I'm going back with David Marquet. I worked with him for a few years, and his philosophy is act your way to new thinking. So, for example, even if you don't mean it, just go through the motions. And I think when you start to see the response, you'll go, "Oh, that was impactful to them. So maybe I should actually dig into that a little bit more." I think that's
Yeah,
really,
that guy I mentioned to you, Rory Sutherland. He's the marketing guy from England.
Mhm.
He's got several YouTube videos that he's on, and he talks about. what you would consider nonlinear or out of the box thinking. But
Yeah.
basically, one of the quotes he said was behavior, no, belief. Belief, I think, comes from behavior.
Yeah.
How you behave will impact how you believe.
Yeah.
Everyone actually thinks it's your beliefs will dictate your behavior.
Yeah. I think that's true too. I think it works both ways.
But really, what happens is when you start the whole fake it till you make it part, all that kind of stuff is when you start doing something in a certain way that is, in fact, the mimics what you're going for,
Yeah.
then everything has to kind of come into line with that for you to maintain that.
I think so. I think so. Unless you're just manipulating everybody, which is very common as well too.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're a sociopath, I mean, they completely understand. They're very high on the EQ scale, and so they manipulate. So I mean, hopefully you mean it, but still, even if you mean it or don't, if that person's giving you coffee, then and you say thank you, that's gonna make them feel better.
Th- yeah, thank you versus nothing is definitely a step up from nothing.
Exactly.
But there are just basic social niceties
Yeah.
that we should have, I guess is my thought. We should have them
Yes.
that people don't do anymore.
Yeah.
And we've talked about driving and other things in the past, and I think I see that when people drive. I see that when people are waiting in line at the grocery store and they get frustrated. I see it all over the place where people just, you'll make a snide comment, a passive aggressive comment or something, and it really is just a matter of the social niceties that we expected in the past have all kind of gone away because our individual desires have kind of intruded.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Because I was just out to California, as you know, like a week ago. And the driving and the people were very different than here. It is like literally different worlds, actually. I mean, the niceties seems like in Southern California are just gone. They're just not there. As opposed if you come here in a little town in Arkansas, it's just rampant. And I got used to it. And then when I went out there, it was the contrast was especially pronounced.
Now, when you say they're gone, and I tend to agree with you, but I think there's a reason for that. And when I used to travel for work, because I would go to, I worked on CNC machines, lathes and mills, and installed them and fixed them. I remember I go to little towns, you
Yeah,
know, I go to the edge of towns and places, and anytime the town was smaller,
yeah,
traffic was slower, the
yes,
pace of life was slower, but
yes,
people didn't get as frustrated and they didn't get as upset. They seem to have a more cushion for tolerating things that would
yeah,
annoy you.
yeah,
And I think what happens is when you get too busy, you burn out all of that tolerance.
yeah, right.
And also, what we talked about, I think, I don't know if we recorded that, but we talked about the idea that constraints actually are good for us.
Oh,
When
absolutely.
we know we can't change something, we don't stress about it,
Yeah, right, right.
right? When you know you can't affect something that's going to happen, you accept it, and then you figure out what are the things you can affect about it, and then
Yeah,
you that's where you concentrate. You don't concentrate on things so that you don't start thinking, oh my gosh, this person's a horrible driver. They could do this so much better. Like, the person's driving the way they drive.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Traffic's the way it is.
Traffic's the way it is. And
I
I think,
wish it were better, but that's different than getting, freaked out over it.
yeah, and typically, whenever people are under stress, this has actually been studied, their behavior goes down. It's just, it's just standard stuff, right? The
Mhm.
more pressure you have onto you, the less niceties that you'll have. So if you can reduce your pressure, be a little bit nicer.
I think if we could slow down our pace of life to where, small town living is, I think people would be much happier,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And I think that's figuring out what's important to you and what's not important to you. Like I know when I was driving in California, we went up from LA down to South Orange County, and I got the bird multiple times in California.
Yep.
Um, Here in Arkansas, I don't think I've been here for 4 years. I don't think I've got it once. It's just a different thing. It's like in California, people will come behind you, they will slit your throat to pass you to get in front of you if they think you're leaving too much distance in front of the next car. That never
Yes.
happens here.
Well, that thought crosses my mind too. But what's even more frustrating is when they do that, and then they hit the brakes to turn into someplace. So in other words, they sped up to gain 3 seconds,
Yeah,
right? I mean, at the end of the day, and so they were rude. They actually put you at more risk because of the way they drove. I mean, it's the mindset that people have, right? I mean, I get frustrated when I'm behind a car that has too much space in front of it. I'm like, come on, right?
yeah, yeah. You have to like calm down. And you can train your brain to calm down. So there
Hmm.
was a guy, his name was James May, and he was a hypnotist. It was interesting. And he said, when you have some stimulus coming in, you have it'll stimulate a certain action coming out. And that stimulus is embedded in your brain and it can be replaced actually. So he said it's very possible if you train yourself enough that even in highly stressful situations, you can actually train yourself to calm down. And so what I did is in the driving part of things, I pretended I had a cat. That my cat used to be Tucker. And when everybody
Hmm.
would cut me off, I would just imagine myself like petting the cat and the cat would be purring and I would like start to calm down. And it worked. It really worked. It took a long time to get it there. But then I stopped that mental exercise and then it kind of went away pretty quickly. But I think it's possible to train yourself with different inputs.
There are
Or
if you
excuse
go
me, different
back
outputs.
to if you go back to we talked about Tony Robbins in the past.
Yeah.
I have his original, kind of self-help series on cassette
Oh,
tape,
nice.
back from gosh, how long ago was that?
Power talk or power techno, whatever it was.
It was, yeah, so I've got that when it was, the Gunther Renker Corporation had
Yeah,
these
yeah,
all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. And I remember one thing on there he had was to figure out a physical trigger that
yeah,
you could do
yeah,
to put yourself in a particular mindset, an
yeah,
empowered mindset, something where you felt strong and the like. And the thing I got used to was I got used to my twisting my ringer on my finger.
yeah,
And that actually triggers certain things in my head that makes me feel like bigger and stronger and like, more energized.
yeah,
And I've forgotten about that until we were talking last week, I think it was. And it made me think, oh yeah, there was that thing. And so like you do that and it's still there. I mean, after enough conditioning, your body still remembers those things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know, I know. I hate to do this, but I'm going to keep doing it. It's just like jujitsu.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. Because what
First
you
one of the
do
year.
is you just train yourself over and over and over, and they just there. I remember there was a guy, and I know the master worked with him for like half an hour, and I was watching this event, and he was getting into a spot, and the guy was like messing with his neck, and he would protect his neck. And because I don't know what happened, he must have been had some injury or just some bad something happened about his neck actually. And he kept saying over and over to him, the fight's not at your neck. The fight's not at your neck. The fight's in a different place. And you're defending your neck and you don't need to defend your neck. Right. So if you only have one hand, it's really hard to choke somebody with one hand. You need a second hand to like lock that thing in. But he was freaking out. And basically what the other guy was doing, he was distracting him so he could go attack him. And it's like you would see the same pattern play over and over and over and over. It was like basically jujitsu was like therapy in this case. But it was fascinating because you could do the therapy, but it was like instead of doing it like, come by once a week, now go try this and come back. I mean, the cycle time was so much faster. It was like every 15 seconds we'd cycle, or he would cycle and cycle and cycle and cycle. And eventually, after about 100 cycles, he started to realize, oh my God, the fight's not at the neck, it's somewhere else actually. But man, must have been a deep program. Something deep, fearful must have happened to him with his neck that he was so focused on that. And we broke through. When I say we, I was sitting up on the wall just watching all this happen. Actually, there's no we, but the two of them eventually got worked through a little bit. I think that's just fascinating. Actually, I thought that is an amazing. So I mean, we can change. I mean, you do have control. Maybe not in that instance. I don't think you have free will there, right? Like we talked about before. But I think if you train outside to deal with that, I think you have free will to change your behavior in that state, which is what jujitsu teaches you. And it's jujitsu is hard because you're getting physical pressure put on you, and the cycle time is so fast. I don't know of a better way to improve than, that.
The, the physical pressure is important in the sense that instant it's instant understanding of the consequences of getting something wrong,
Yes, yes.
right? Normally, big decisions, we don't necessarily know what the immediate impacts are. Even if we can figure them out in our brains, we don't feel them.
Yeah,
So that's why we can rationalize not doing something. Like you don't feel the fact that being overweight and having whatever condition that causes
yeah,
as something bad at the moment when you're eating that cheesecake or whatever it is that you're
yeah,
eating.
right.
And so you're able to defer that. Whereas,
Yeah.
like in what you're talking about, it's an immediate consequence of getting something wrong.
Like 5 seconds later, sometimes
Right.
2 seconds.
So in many ways, it makes sense that it's as a short term life lessons or not short term, but as a quick turnaround life lesson, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
If you could find a way to envision consequences more immediately for long term events,
yeah,
right? And actually, that was so. Now I'm going to go back to Tony Robbins again. That was the other thing. Was like, how do you get into a state where you're not eating stuff you shouldn't eat, or doing things you shouldn't do, or whatever dangerous activity, things that aren't good for you in the long term? And it was all about envisioning yourself, putting in mind the goal of what you want to be,
yeah,
and
yeah,
having that so firmly ingrained, and then understanding that this action hurts that from ever happening or
yeah,
stops that from ever happening. And
yeah,
so the immediate impact is the negative feeling you have about how that's not going to be achieved,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it's not that I'm not going to achieve it. That's not the thing that's the negative. The negative consequence is I'm going to feel bad because I'm not going to be able to achieve it. And then that's the immediacy, right?
yeah.
Finding something that you can pull forward and make that the immediate consequence.
Yeah, there's a going back to Tony Robbins, there's two things, right, that he talks about and everybody talks about. There's pleasure and there's pain. And really those are the only two stimuluses. And so what I did for a while, I just took a rubber band, put it on my wrist, and if I started doing some kind of behavior that I didn't want, then I'd pull that son of a bitch back and snap it as hard as I could. And it didn't take many times, for to learn. It's like that is a painful event where my wrist was all bruised up and whatever. I mean, those are kind of extreme examples, but it's very similar to, like to jujitsu. Really bad stuff will happen if you make a mistake. And who knows? Maybe that's a good way to change your behavior very quickly.
Uh, Brian in our Toastmaster group, he's done a couple of speeches where he talks about what motivates people,
Yeah,
and basically the carrot and the stick, right? What you're talking about, pain and pleasure.
yeah.
And he talks about what inspires you is not going to be as powerful as what scares you.
No, no, no. From a marketing
So
standpoint,
the
the
lion will inspire you more than
yeah, from a marketing standpoint, the pain part is many, many, many multiples more powerful than the pleasure part. It's in studies all over the place. Like if I'm going to give you $100 for you to do something, you'll do it, but it's not as much as say I'm going to take $100 away from you. That is significantly more motivating. The loss. So
Mhm.
that's where you need to go. Maybe need to think in terms of just what am I
So
going to lose if I keep doing this?
back to the resolution thing. I think that was one of the things I put into my resolutions was I want to be we've said this before, comfortable with being uncomfortable. I want to be uncomfortable every day. I want to find something, and I told you I specifically want to focus on being more gregarious, outgoing, energetic, boisterous, the ability to channel that thinking.
Yeah,
Because I always realize if I'm out and I'm loud and the like, no one's going to get overly upset with me. It's not
yeah,
like the fear of being judged by others really isn't there. It shouldn't be there. But I think the idea is it's such a different aspect of my character that I really want to work on that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a good point too. People think about that. Oh, I don't want to offend anybody, or I don't want anybody to notice. Dude, other people are so involved in themselves, they probably don't even see you, let alone. It's like that's ego. You're just not that important.
Hmm.
Sorry, I mean it's kind of not very nice, but it's very
No,
true.
but that's the thing is, Yeah, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to invade their space, but at the same time, I'm like, that is how you get attention. That is how you impact people.
Hmm.
Is then you need them to hear you first and to be comfortable being heard.
Yeah.
Right. That's something that I think I need to work on. So that's one thing I do want to work on.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you get to practice it. So, I mean, I think you just need to make up your own jujitsu exercises to go practice that. One of the things I did, one of the things this James May guy had me do, is I was uncomfortable asking for money. And so what he said, we're going to fix this, right? This is what we're going to do. We're going to go to a mall, anybody with a lot of a lot of people around, and you go up and you ask 100 people for some money. It's small, it's just like 1 penny. Hey, can I have a penny? Right? It's no real big deal, but man, go do that. Go talk to 100 people over a couple of hours. That will change you. Let me tell you, the first one you freak out, the 99th and 100th one, you're like, whatever, man. It's like I could care less what they say.
You did that?
Yeah, yeah. I would challenge you to go do that if you want to, like, you know, go to people. It's like it's crazy. It'll freak you out until you get used to it. Then you're like, whatever. It's like just whatever. It's like they're just a person.
Yeah.
What you'll find is some really interesting. You'll find that most people will give you money. Most
Did you
people.
just ask, or did you give any kind of
No,
background, or
I say, hey, can I have a penny? I need some money. Can I have a penny? And then if you want, if you, that's the more advanced version. If you're someone, if you want to soften it, you could say, hey, I have trouble asking people for money, so my coach.
yeah? No, I was thinking to actually do that. Exactly what you just said, because I'm working on this.
Yeah,
So can I have a penny?
that's the white belt move. The black belt move is, can I have a penny?
It's getting out of your worry to the point where you can do that. Yeah, interesting though. That's an interesting thought to
Just
go
these
up to
little
someone.
tiny things like a rubber band and 100 people asking for pennies. I mean, these are, these seem simple, but they're pretty darn hard.
Well, simple doesn't necessarily mean
No,
easy. In fact, it often doesn't. So
but it's crazy when you
it's
go through it and you do those exercises, you'll find that, you lose a lot of the fear because nothing bad happens.
no, but I really like that because one of the things you said was you had a problem with money. I've got all kinds of stuff in my head about money too,
Yeah.
and I think I need to address that. I
Yeah.
need to be comfortable. I need to be comfortable with money involved in relationships.
Okay. Like how so exactly? Like a business or just any relationship?
Any relationship.
Oh, okay.
If someone asks to borrow money from me, I'll loan them money, but I actually probably stress about it more than the average person does.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't like to bring money into relationships if I can avoid it, and I think that is a limiting factor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just part of business. It's
As long
just,
as you're a responsible person and you take care of your debts and the like, there isn't a problem there.
yeah, right. Yeah.
But
Um,
somewhere along the way, I learned that money was dirty, and therefore you shouldn't be bringing it into relationships, and that's kind of a something I need to overcome.
that's interesting because it's really hard to live without money, actually.
Yeah. So the idea though is like I think that's also probably one of the reasons I have a hard time with entrepreneurship and running my own business is the fact that I want to keep that transaction. I want to keep the transaction of getting money as clean as possible. You got a boss, you got an employee. It's a very clean transaction. You do work, you get paid for it,
Oh,
right?
yeah, but the power
And
flows one way, though, right?
yeah, well, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying I
Yeah.
think that's that's the easy way out. I don't have to confront those money issues, those money values.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you may want to do the money exercise then. That
I
may,
know, I know that, but like you, since you said it, I mean, now I got to figure out how am I comfortable enough to do it. But yeah,
well, it doesn't matter if you're comfortable or not. Just go do it anyways. Because let me
I
tell you
gotta.
something.
Well, let's say not comfortable. I've got to figure out when I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, when you're going to do it. It's kind of like this. I was watching a Navy SEAL show the other day, and they said preparing for buds, it's kind of like getting kicked in the balls. It's like there's no preparing for it. It just, you got to just, here we go. Here we
But
go.
I think that's the other aspect of it, right? Being comfortable enough with what the potential outcomes are, and still going in and doing it. If you always know what the outcomes are, and you're always comfortable that you're going to succeed in what comes out of it, then there's not that much risk really. There might be a lot of effort, but that doesn't mean there's a lot of risk. So
Well,
so is the true growth in the person who continually does hard things and succeeds at them when they know they're going to succeed at them, or someone who's actually pushing the limit and saying, I could fail at this and still does it.
Oh,
Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's growth, is what I'm getting at.
yeah, yeah. So Andrew Huberman talks about there's a pot in your brain that grows. It's like when you do hard things, but that's not it. That you don't want to do. He goes, that's when growth happens. Just because you're doing something hard. Let's say you've been running for 20 years and it's hard. I mean, yeah, it's hard, but you're fine with it. I don't know how much growth you're going to get from, once you get past year 1 or 2. I don't know that, the rest of the 18 years is really going to benefit you in any significant way, actually.
Well, if you think about it, when you do an exercise routine and you're doing, I don't know what, curls, your body gets really good at that.
Yeah, really good.
And
Very
pretty
powerful.
soon, the
Really
effort
good.
doing it, you're spending a lot less energy to do it than when you started.
Yeah, right.
So that's why you need to switch things up. That's why you need to change the routines because
Yeah.
your body gets efficient at it. So if
Mhm.
anything you do for long enough, you're gonna get comfortable with and good at. I don't want to say good at it, but you'll get comfortable at it. I guess maybe is the
You
way
get
to
very
say
efficient. Yeah, yeah. You understand it. It doesn't concern you. It may hurt, you may burn, but still you're like, I kind of know what it is, right? So I mean, I guess you get comfortable at it because I don't really like that phrase, the one you brought up, like get comfortable at being uncomfortable. I don't know that that's the right
Well,
phrase,
so
maybe.
I think I've mentioned Vin Zhang to you before. He's
No.
an Australian guy. I think he's Chinese or he's Vietnamese background, but he's from Australia. And he was an accountant, and then he was a magician, and then now he's a public speaker. He gives all kinds of things on public speaking.
Yeah.
But one of the things he talked about, he got a question where someone says, "Is it okay to fake it? You know, if I'm not good at this, is it good to fake it?" And then
Right.
he brought up the idea. Well, I think he said, do you play a musical instrument? And they go, no. So if I had you play a musical instrument right now, you'd sound horrible. Would
Yeah.
I say you're faking it?
No,
No, you're just not good at it. You're not
because you
comfortable
don't
at
have
it.
the skill. Yeah.
You're not familiar with it yet. You
Yeah.
haven't
Right.
figured it out yet.
Yeah.
So if you decide you need a particular skill set or a particular value or a particular characteristic of your personality, if you decide that's something you want and you need,
Yeah.
then building it is just a matter of exercising it, doing it, over and over until it becomes part of who you are.
Yeah. Right.
There's no reason to think that that's faking it.
No.
If
No.
you've
No.
made
Yeah.
the decision you need this,
Yeah. Right.
then practicing it and being bad at it is not faking it. It's just learning it,
Yeah.
right? And so the idea of fake it till you make it is a nice phrase, but in reality, it's like you decide you need this.
Yeah.
Practice it until you're good at it. Is the
Yeah.
same is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I want this thing, and this is the cost, and I'm willing to pay it to get
Mhm.
the outcome that I want. It's pretty simple. I've trained a lot in guns and fighting and stuff, and then I pay these like special forces guys. You can take these classes anywhere, and it's awesome because one of the things that they teach you is just how much you suck. That's one thing they go. The point of this class is, look, we're going to have you for like a week, right? It was horrible. The whole week was horrible. I wanted to quit every single day, and I'm like, okay, wait, before I quit, let me go home. Let me take like 3 Tylenol. Let's just go to bed at 6 o'clock. And if I still want to quit in the morning, you can quit. But then invariably you get some sleep and you're not as sore, and you're like, okay, one more day, just one more day. But it's interesting because they put you in situations where you fail constantly. And I was talking to this one guy. His name is Tim Kennedy. He's all over. Like he's kind of a cool guy, and he got so excited when I told him of all of my failures. Like there was all these exercises where people are trying to hunt you, surveillance, counter surveil, all this stuff, and I sucked at it. And he was like, he's like, that is amazing. I go, what is so amazing? I just know how bad I suck. He goes, here's the amazing part. You didn't even know that you sucked before. Now you know you suck, and now you know what to work on. And he said, in the special forces community, one of the biggest compliments we can give is, well, you can always get better. And he's like, the whole key to the thing is just don't quit. Don't quit. Keep going at it. Let me tell you something. That's harder to do than it is to say. That's a seal
Yeah.
you use. Don't quit, right?
Yeah, again, so if you don't quit, then is it really a failure?
I don't think so. A lot of people say it's impossible to fail. You just learn, right?
Right. I mean, this is the thing. You either keep doing it until you do it,
Mhm.
or your ROI is like it's not worth it anymore. I'm giving up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So yes, you failed to do the thing that you said you were going to do, but the need to do it may be gone.
yeah. Well, and I know
Right.
in some cases people die, so I suppose that's a failure, you know?
That's a failure. But I mean, if you're trying to get some specific task done and someone else does it for you, or someone else gets it done, then you don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
Then
right.
you failed at getting it done, but it got done. So
Got done.
you know,
Yes. So the mission is achieved. Yeah, and so
then are you missing the whole value of a failure?
well,
Is
as long
there
as
value
you
in
learn.
calling something a failure? Is the question,
No,
right? Because the whole thing with was it agile methodology for development was like fail fast, right? Fail
yeah,
fast and recover. Fail fast
yeah,
and go on to the next thing,
yeah, right.
right? Which to me is just like doing an experiment, finding a method that didn't work, and then going on the next
Yeah,
experiment.
yeah,
It's to me it's not failure, but fail fast actually carries a lot of weight as far as people getting it. It's like
yeah,
do it, it doesn't work, move on.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna extend on the agile thing just a little bit. So in marketing, the thing was always fail fast and cheap, right? Because
Mhm.
your returns are asymmetrical. It's fine. You know, if it's asymmetrical returns, I could fail 100 times, but if I finally hit the home run, it's like I get more, I get paid more than those 100 failures combined. As long as you're not an idiot. They're like, please just don't make the exact same mistake multiple times in a row,
Yeah.
because then they call you an idiot.
Well, then you haven't learned anything from it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
then, I mean, if you try 100 times and you get it right through chance, then
Yeah,
maybe you didn't learn anything.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas if you tried 100 times and you got it right because you learned every step along the way, that's a totally different lesson.
yeah, yeah. And I think they call it, what do they call it? The school of hard knocks. You know, I mean, it's like
Life.
yeah. I mean, your body may be a little beat up, a little bruised. You know, you got some scars, bruises on you, and it's
But
okay.
this brings me to something. I know you and I agree on this that anyone can change whatever they want. They can if but it takes two things: a desire to change, which usually means you need to have a goal,
Yeah, right.
and awareness of what it is that needs to change,
Yeah,
self-awareness of what needs to change.
yeah,
And I think those things are what most people don't have,
yeah,
or they don't build.
yeah.
So this is why I actually think that most people are capable, or are intelligent people that are capable of learning pretty much anything they need to learn or want to learn and
Oh
can
my gosh.
succeed at it.
Yeah,
I really believe in human potential, but the issue is, do people know what they want to do? Have they thought about, this is what I want to do? Not,
yeah,
I just want to go take a cooking class, I want to go learn blank, and then figuring out what needs to change or what they need to work on or what they need to develop. And it's easier to say, okay, I just need the skill.
yeah.
But what if it's actually an ability, an awareness? What if it's something that's kind of hidden in your character that like me, that whole thing with money,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, I know a lot of people who probably have the same thinking who aren't even aware that they have that thinking,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
People who probably spend all their money because they're afraid of losing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't want to lose it, so I'll just go spend it all, which is like spending losing it, right? I mean, there's and different people react in different ways. So I think that kind of self-awareness and a goal are, you know, we know the importance of goals. Everyone talks about it, and that's what the resolution is.
Yeah.
Actually, you haven't told me what your resolution is, by the way.
I've got the standard one. I want to lose weight and make more
Hmm?
money. Pretty, pretty standard ones.
I took the make more money idea, but I wrote it out as alternate income streams.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. However it comes. When it's in your bank account, it doesn't have a source. It's just, what do they call it? It's about as, help me out here, homogeneous as possible. It's about as,
Homogeneous?
I mean, it's all the same thing,
It's all the
regardless.
same.
Or the sources, it all, in fact, just goes down into one number, right?
Money is money. Yeah, as long as you're not doing something illegal to get it, then I think you're fine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, so I think my real goal is my real goal is, and I don't know how to do this, is I want self-mastery, which means I have got to figure out how to get myself to do the stuff I don't want to do. And it's easy when you're motivated, but when you're not motivated, that's when it becomes hard. And I go back to David Goggins, and so I think I'm going to try as many tricks as I can, but ultimately I have to go to David Goggins, which is you just got to go to war with yourself. It's a battle of the mind.
So how are you going to overcome it when that happens? What are you going to do? I mean, because we talked earlier about short-term negative impact or short-term consequences versus long-term consequences.
I don't know. I may not think about any of those things. I may just think about myself that my goal is to do hard stuff. And so
Mhm.
I got a set of goals I want to by Q1 of 2025. And none of those is, I wouldn't say that any of those is, hang on. Some are important, some are not important. But like learning Greek is one. And it's like, I don't really need to learn Greek, but learning Greek is hard. And it's like just the sheer willpower of just going through and just memorizing. And it's not sexy at all. It's like it's fun in the first little bit of time. Oh, I'm gonna learn Greek. But then when you start learning the alphabet and you're learning vocabulary, man, it's just a grind.
Hmm.
You're just grinding it out, and there is nothing fun about it. And so I chose that goal, I guess, to force myself into something that I think would be valuable, but I'm gonna have to force myself to do it. And that scares me. I don't know. I don't know that I know I can do it. I know I'm capable of it. I just don't know that I'm willing to put in the work to get the result, actually. But I'm reframing it as like you got to do the work because I'm getting something more than just learning Greek, right?
If so, yes, you can do it. I can do it.
Yeah,
Anyone can do it, right?
yeah, right.
And if as long as that doesn't become the excuse for not doing it, oh, I can do it anytime. Therefore, I don't need to,
It's all
right?
excuse. Yeah.
Um, I think that happens a lot with my mind.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, I could do that, but you know, to your point, the other things that you get out of learning,
Yeah.
right? The discipline, the ability to avoid the comfort,
Yeah.
default to comfort that you got. All those things I think are valuable to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking one thing would be to somehow visualize, like we were talking about earlier, visualize what the end goal is
Yeah.
and build that image in your head so strongly
Yeah.
that when you make a decision that has potential to not achieve that or to negatively impact that, that the short-term effect is you feel bad because you're pushing that goal further out. You're making it harder to achieve,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that would be like the immediate pain that you could get out of it. The other thought I had was, you know who Mel Robbins is?
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
the five
She has
second.
that she has the 5 second rule, right? It's
Mhm.
like you know the right thing to do, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
So, committing to that 5 second rule is the hard thing.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy just to say, "Oh yeah, I know what to do. I
Yeah.
could do the 5 second
You
rule."
could. Yeah.
But just sitting there and going, "Okay, I know what I got to do. So in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to start that action."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
yes, exactly. And one thing, because I'm taking a class from this ex-Navy SEAL guy, and a lot of people say this, he's like, watching videos about something is very different than doing the thing.
mhm.
You can study, you can prepare for it, you can do this. So I'm very proud of both of us because we've been talking about doing a podcast for quite a while, actually. And at some point, I don't know, somebody got a burr up their butt and decided, look, we're just going to go on Zoom and it's going to suck the first few, and we're going to hit
Yeah.
the record button. It's just do it.
Well, you're talking about one of the things that I keep avoiding doing is gardening.
Okay.
I'm out in the garden watering, doing whatever, but then I'm like, oh, I should really weed this plant here. I can see the weeds growing here. Or I should really take care of this or that. Or I should trim this or do that. And instead of taking action at that moment and doing that one thing,
Yeah.
I say, oh, I'm going to spend Saturday morning just doing that on all of these.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
So
okay.
I defer the today's 3 minute action
Yeah,
to a future time,
yeah,
and I don't do it.
yeah. That's super
Right.
common. Yeah,
And I think what I need to do is like not wait for the perfect day or the perfect appointment to sit
yeah,
down and do an hour of weeding,
yeah,
but
right.
just do my 2 minutes of weeding today.
Yeah,
And it's it's the default my mind is going to right now. And I need to overcome that and just, yes, it's uncomfortable. My hands are gonna get wet because it's cold in the morning and whatever, but that's
whatever.
just the way it is.
Yeah, and I honestly think that there's a lot of techniques, right? One is just break it down to the ridiculous thing. It's like, okay, Chris, okay, listen, if I was there coaching, I'd be like, okay, see this that one piece of grass, just pull that one piece of grass. So that's all, that's it, right?
No, no, we gotta do the atomic habits things. Like, okay, so Chris, if you're afraid your hands are gonna get wet, you
Yeah,
can get the gloves, the gardening gloves out, and put them next to the door. So as you go out, you grab the gloves and put them
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Right? You can grab the shears to trim or whatever, and a little bag to put the waste, the trimmings in or whatever. And so basically, you put all the tools needed right next door, next to when you step out. So
yeah.
when I step out to do it, it's like there's no excuse. I'm prepped to do it.
You're prepped to do it. That's probably the easier way to do it.
Mhm.
But even if that doesn't work, I think at some point, this Goggins does have something. It's like you just must go to war with yourself, you know?
So you come to a conclusion that how does that work? So your lizard brain versus your whatever
I
brain
think
are
so. Yeah,
fighting
your
each other.
frontal lobe, right? The one that has the free will is here. The lizard one's in the back, right? Just reacts to everything. And you can slowly change the program, but I think you have to intentionally, like I know you said you did cold showers for a while. It's like at
Hmm.
some point, the first one really sucked, but probably the 20th one, you're like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I kind of know. I know what to expect. It's really not that bad, you know?
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
it
enjoy
isn't
it.
that bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I would like to change your word. I'd like to say I don't know that you ever become comfortable with it, but I think you become familiar with it, right? Where a lot of the
Yes.
sting gets taken out of it.
Well, and that was actually the word that guy used when I mentioned it, because it's not fake, it's unfamiliar.
Yeah, yeah. And you gotta do it like the first time through the jungle, man. The first path is horrible, but the second one's and by the time you go through it 100 times, you're like, oh, this is super easy, right? All the weeds are chopped down. I know the mental trick for me though is I've got to break it down to really small stuff. Like organizing just kills me. So I keep chunking down. It's like, okay, there's one screw. Like, what do I do with this screw? Just one thing. You know, and it's funny. It's like then you get momentum. After you do a couple of those, you kind of sort of the flow starts to happen. Then it's not so hard. I think it's the start that's the hardest part.
It is. And I think a big part of that for me is because of the way I analyze things in my head.
Yeah.
I want to I want all my work to be efficient. So when I start, I want it to be as close to perfect as possible, the work I'm doing. So like you said, you find a screw and you got to put it away, right? It goes, well, I don't have a place for screws, or I've got 50 different sizes of screws, and how am I going to organize them? So now
Yeah.
I got to figure out a way to organize it. And so pretty soon your little step becomes this massive project. And I think just saying, you know what? I'm taking an action. This is it. Boom. It's not perfect. It's not done. It is a continuous growth. I will always be sorting screws in my garage, and figuring out where they go.
Yeah.
And I just have to live with the fact that that is not going to be done with.
It's not going to be done with, well, I mean, it'll be done someday, but at the time, what you're doing is not efficient. You're thinking you're efficient, but you're not. I mean, step one would be just go in the house, get a plastic baggie, and start putting all the screws in a baggie. At least all the screws are together, and now you can subsort later. But it's like you're like, well, if I do that, then I got to get a label machine, and I got to go
Oh,
research.
but then what about the nuts and the bolts I find? Those are different than the screws. Come on. And then, of course, look at these screwdriver bits I found. Those are tools. Those aren't screws. Where do those go?
Those are tools, and I need to build an organization. So, I should buy a 3D printer that I can print the Grid Infinity system and have everything perfectly.
Oh, right now I need a label printer because my label printer stopped working, and I was sitting there labeling all my little boxes now. Now I can't do that. I mean, I'm stuck.
Well, and that's what I do. So I actually, when I did all this, I bought these plastic tubs and I bought this, I think it's right in here. I bought this like fancy like labeler,
Yep.
did all this research, and I got all these different labels, different sizes. And the problem, Chris, is what happened is after a while, I ran out of excuses. And I go, oh crap, I guess I'm actually gonna have to go organize at this point.
No, I mean, I've got post-it notes on all these little storage boxes here that say what's in them, and
Yeah,
they works perfectly fine.
yeah,
But yeah, I was like, about a third of them have labels on them.
yeah, yeah,
And so I sat down yesterday and I started typing out labels. And of course, the screen on my label maker, it's a 20-year-old label maker.
yeah.
I can't even read it. So I just have to kind of type it and hit the button and hope that it comes
No,
out right. And
yeah,
then, of course, I ran out of paper, label paper.
of course.
So now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm out of label paper. Now, do I buy a new label maker since the other one obviously doesn't work that well? And
Yes.
suddenly, there's too many choices. Again, constraints. Actually, that's it. Constraints free us to take action.
They do. They free your mind up to focus on what's really important. Because I'd say, listen, I'm a big fan of label makers, and I say you got to go buy a label maker. But until you go buy one, just get a yellow sticky note and a Sharpie and just write on there. It's good enough for right now.
They're all labeled that way. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
Because yeah,
I like
when
to
you start
finish.
doing an actual label that's actually more permanent, then
Yeah,
the actual wording you use on the label becomes important, and your nomenclature. Is it like a tool dot, wrench dot whatever, or
yeah, right. But here's the thing. It's not that hard to unpeel a label off a piece of plastic and put a new one on. I mean,
it
it's
has to be perfect.
it's perfect. And it's so funny because yeah, the what is it they say perfection is the enemy of greatness or something like that. Some
Uh, oh, perfection is the enemy of what is
greatness,
it?
good or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, perfection is the enemy of good. I think it is.
Yeah. And it's like, and the thing is, to get to perfect, you gotta go through good. You gotta go through it sucks. I just don't know of another route through. You gotta go through it.
So I remember a project I was working on, and it was going to be a big project. It was, going to be 100 and some odd million-dollar project.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, we need people to organize the outputs, the research, the papers, the documents, the presentations, all that stuff. It needs to be
Yeah.
organized. So we need a folder structure. We need to know where things are. We need to understand all this stuff. We need dates and names, and we need to be consistent so that when different people are accessing files, they know what they are.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yeah.
So it was I would say 10 to 20% of people's time was trying to figure out where things were and what we'd already
Yeah.
created and what we hadn't created. And I got so frustrated because I'm like, no, if we don't do this from the start, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, right. It's gonna
But
be fine.
when you've got a culture of people who just are laissez-faire about how they do things, and everyone's got their own way of doing things, and they don't even centrally organize their documents
Yeah.
necessarily, you end up with this happening. And then,
Yeah.
I was trying to convince the bosses that we needed staff to actually do this. If we're going to be spending $100 million on a project, having one or two people whose job it is to organize the
Yeah,
work,
right.
the
Yeah.
output, is not a big deal.
No, not a big deal.
But they just didn't understand the value of it because they weren't people like that themselves.
Yeah, they didn't see
And
the
so it
problem.
just got worse and worse and worse until finally they said, we need to organize this. And I'm like,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
But we went through a year and a half to 2 years of suffering,
yeah,
even though I knew we could fix it. The problem was the team wasn't there yet because they hadn't suffered,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
The lesson would have not have had as much meaning. So this is where I have a problem with it, is letting things go the way they will naturally happen
yeah,
because people need to come to an understanding.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Even though I, thought 2 years ahead at knowing what we need to do, but I'm not going to be able to convince them because they're not on the same experience level or background as I am.
yeah, they don't see the value in it, actually. Yeah, yeah,
That's why it's great when you have people who do see the value. You can just say it and they go, "Yeah, okay, yeah, you define it and I'll follow it."
yeah. Well, and I
Right?
think it goes back to David Marquet because he taught me the idea of making rules up. And so the rule that I have, and it's not but it's what I shoot for, is I should be able to get anything in my house within 10 seconds. Now, you know, everything, some of the stuff is like up higher, so you got to get a ladder, so it's gonna be longer than 10 seconds. But maybe I reframe it's like I should know where everything is within 10 seconds. I should be able to get to it to be that. And that's what I learned from an organizer lady. She's like, if you can't get something in 10 seconds, then you're not organized. And it's so frustrating because I have wasted so much time on projects, like looking for a screwdriver. It's like, where did that screwdriver? I need this screwdriver. I know it's here somewhere, right? And then it wasn't because I had everything everywhere, and I didn't know where anything was, and it got so frustrating and so much pain built up. It's like, look, I'm going to take like 3 full days, and I'm going to get this stuff organized. And it's amazing. I don't know if this is going to align with what we're talking about, but this effort that you put into organizing, whether it's file cabinets or organizing your life or organize anything, I mean, those 2 or 3 days that you put into that could have ripple effects or impact for like 10 years, you know?
Again, I think the idea here is you're never going to be done organizing.
You're never going to be done. No.
So that's the first lesson to learn is, or the second lesson. The first lesson, it's important, you should do it.
Yeah.
The second thing is it's a living process. It's always going to be happening.
Well, and you set up your constraints. It's how organized you want to be. It's like, hey, maybe I can be organized, or at least I know all the screwdrivers are in a drawer, and I open it up, and okay, I got to fish around for like 30 seconds to find the
Yeah,
one.
I think that's a great example. You know, the problem is people go in, borrow a screwdriver, and it doesn't come back,
Yeah.
right? Or it ends up somewhere else. So that's one issue and I get frustrated. I used to have when I was servicing CNC machines, I had 2 different tool cases I took everywhere I went, and I knew where every tool was.
Yeah. Right.
When I went into IT, I took those tool cases with me a lot because we used them to pull cable and stuff.
Yeah.
And when I ever let my team use things, they wouldn't put them back. I'd be chasing down tools all the time.
Frustrating. It wastes so much time.
But the other thing is, you were saying you need to be able to know where something is. I've got lots of craft materials,
Yeah.
right? Beads and twine and all kinds of things out in the garage in several boxes. Not well organized, but I know
Yeah.
roughly where they are.
It's
I
good
can find
enough, right?
So
Yeah.
when my daughter needs them, I can go out there and within 5 minutes, I can usually get whatever
Yeah.
I
Right.
need.
Yeah.
Uh, I really want to get to a point where I can, whittle down what I've owned to where I only have a few things that I really need.
Yeah.
And
I did that. I did that. I there was.
I would love to. I would love to be able to have everything in this room I'm in right now. Aside from my clothes, maybe,
Yeah.
and my food, everything else about me, I would like to fit into this room.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be tough, because that means I've got to find a place for the 3D printer, and I got to find a plan because those aren't in the room.
Those aren't in the room. Yeah, but I really like this idea of constraint. I think this is a major point. You set a constraint around something, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but it could be. Typically the problem always is in retrieval, right? Getting the thing back.
Well,
And
it frees you up, right?
frees you up.
If
Yeah.
you set a constraint like I don't have to build it perfectly,
Yeah.
I need to build it so it works within the net for the next year.
Yes.
I
Right.
need to build it so it only takes me a day, 2 days a week to do today.
Yeah. Right.
You start building these constraints, and then you can let go of these other worries that you've got.
You can let go. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If your worry is like, oh my gosh, if I put on all this time and then I got to redo it next year, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Well, no, you got it for a year, and not only that, you learn the lessons of how it's organized, and you probably learn where your development was wrong or needs to be improved.
Yeah. Right. Right. This iterative process. Yeah. Exactly. And there's a book. It's like cult following. It's called "Getting Things Done" by David Allen. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
Getting things done, yeah.
But if you're not, if anybody's not, I mean, you need to read that book. And it just the basic idea is you get all this stuff out of your head, because the problem is you keep ruminating over it, because in your head, I don't have a system. I don't have a system. So I got to constantly be cycling through so I don't forget anything. Or if you have a system, even a notebook where you just write everything down, you just do a total dump, that frees your brain up, because now your brain trusts and it says, okay, wait a minute, I know that I've got this. So if I really want to know this, I can go to that notebook and I can look at everything, which is a really good thing. And it frees your brain up from all this noise that's going on in your head.
I told you about that guy who wrote the book, The Second Brain, Building a Second Brain.
Yeah, is that the Obsidian software, Obsidian, whatever, or
No, it's one of the tools that people often use. Notion's another one that people tend to
yeah,
use. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you can use OneNote. I think the guy who wrote the book uses Evernote.
Okay, yeah.
But the idea was to organize everything into basically four categories,
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
right? And it's like projects, actual things that you're working on,
yeah,
right? Versus like areas or resources
yeah,
that you're working. So I guess maybe a resource might be your job. I guess I don't know if they because it's making you money.
yeah, yeah.
But
Sure.
then if you want to change jobs, that might be a project,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
To change jobs.
yeah.
So and then well, I think one of them was archive. You
Yeah,
never throw anything away; just dump it in the archive, and then if you ever need to go back, you can go find
you
it.
can go back. Yeah.
But it's basically four folders for everything, and he has a lot of YouTube. What's his name? Tiago Fuerte or something like that.
Mhm.
He's got a lot of videos where he talks about how he uses different tools. And one I really liked was watching how he organizes email. He basically uses the
Yeah.
same kind of idea for email,
Email
right?
kills me. Email kills.
You only need three or four boxes for email.
Yeah.
That's it. I
That's
mean, files, right?
that's one of my other things I didn't disclose, but I have written down is like I want to keep my inbox empty, right? I want to
Oh
eat.
yeah. Well, I've got what 14,000 emails in my inbox.
Okay, yeah, yeah, exactly. So finding something is going to be difficult unless you can search for it or something. But I think these in my mind these constraints, maybe a little more polished way to say it is that you have frameworks to operate in, you know. And I know for jujitsu is a set of techniques, it's a framework that pretty much no matter what somebody wants to do to me, I've got a response. Now, I may not be very good at implementing the response, but at least I kind of know what to do, you know?
Constraints are
Yeah,
frameworks.
I think if you go into constraints, a framework is, you know, a mental model to think about something. It's some way to simplify reality.
I would go a little bit differently and say that the framework helps you define your constraints.
Yeah, I
And
guess.
then maybe that's what we need to work on is kind of like a default framework. Right. What's the timing of this? What's the cost resources of this? What's the level of effort? How how long do I need to have to get this done? What's the benefit of this?
Yeah,
Kind of going through a little analysis in your head,
yeah,
and then calling out. Instead of saying it needs to be grand and I need to organize the whole house, it's like no, I just need to organize my clothes or my books or
yeah,
whatever. Right.
right. Or
And then
one drawer, right?
what's her name with the joy of cleaning or organizing?
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
Japanese lady.
Yeah.
She was very helpful to me, actually. Just one thing was helpful. One idea was that if you don't love it, get rid of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and then, of course the problem is you tie a lot of emotion into old stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So figuring out what that emotion is and is it something you need to keep?
yeah, you know, and a lot of times maybe you just need a picture of it. You don't need to keep the actual thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean we've done that with like my daughter's pictures. I mean, I think she used to draw so much that there's no way we could keep it all.
Yeah, but you can scan it and put it in like a database.
Mhm.
Or, you know what? I'm saying not picture in the sense, but like maybe you've got like a like the classic that we just saw this at Christmas is they had China, whole China set, right? And I was like trying to help this person go through, and I go, okay, let me ask you a question. How long has that China set been there? And do you ever have any intention of ever using that China set? No, no, and no. I'm like, why are you keeping it? Because it just reminds me of grandma, right? So I feel like if I get rid of that, then I don't love grandma or anything.
Yep.
I'm like, take a
I'm,
picture
I'm
of it then.
I'm looking at this, right?
Yeah,
These four hats here, I've worn one in the past year.
yeah, there you go.
This is the only hat that I've worn.
Yeah.
Do I need these? I need to clean up my hats.
Well, I don't know if you need them or not. That's a different question.
I need to clean them up. I need to get rid of them.
Oh, okay. Why? I thought you like hats.
I do like hats. Here's some hats. I've
So,
I haven't worn these in 5 years or more.
oh, okay. So do you love them?
No,
Then get rid of them.
they're functional and they serve. But this is perfectly functional too. It's a good gardening hat, kind
Yeah,
of
right.
cowboy style straw hat.
Yeah.
So, and then there are things that because of the effort it took to get it,
Yeah.
it's hard to let go of that level of effort. I put in X amount of dollars or hours to make this happen.
I know. I
How do
know.
I get rid of this? It's like
I
a project. If you build something and you spent 2 weeks making it,
yeah.
you're not going to just give it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Yeah, that's a common problem. That's really common. In business, we call it sunk cost, right? You had a failure, it's sunk, and it's sunk, right? It's done. Get it
Yeah,
out.
but if you reframe the thing as like, well, I got what I needed out of it, or
You
I
got
got
what
what
you
I could
needed.
out of it,
Yeah, yeah,
right? It's like I did the project, I made it, I completed it, boom, it's done. Or
yeah,
I started the project and I wasn't able to complete it, and I no longer have time and I no longer have interest. Keeping it around is just more cost. Let's go ahead and get rid of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
I've got a guitar I started making 15 years ago,
yeah,
sitting in the garage,
yeah,
right? At one point, I thought I might continue on and actually make it. At this
yeah,
point, no.
yeah. Then get rid
So
of
I
it.
should probably just get rid of the stuff.
Just take a couple pictures of it, right? So you remember it and get rid of it because
But if I need to, I can always start from scratch. It wouldn't
start
be
from
that hard.
because these things they bog you down. It's like they take up. It's like old computers, with the more and more software on them, they get slower and slower and slower. Sometimes you got to do a fresh install, and
You
then
get a
when it
memory
runs
leak.
out,
You got to reboot.
you got to reboot
You got to
yourself,
free up your RAM.
free up your RAM, and then you decide when you get it done. It's like the thought of getting rid of it is way worse than the actual getting rid of it.
The old saying, if you haven't worn a piece of clothing in a year, get rid of it. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Unless it's very special or unless it's a one case thing. I mean,
Well,
there are
I think
exceptions to
the
it, right?
idea is if you haven't used it in a year, get rid of it. It kind of holds true for the variety of things. When you get to hobbies and interests and stuff, it's a little different. The
Yeah,
other thing I've noticed is the wider your skill set, the wider your interests,
yeah.
your kind of those things that you've collected actually become the basis for you to do other things.
Oh, yeah. It's tools, right? You need tools.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
there's a lot
supply.
of tools I won't get rid of because I'm like, I may need that. That's valuable and it's hard and expensive to get again. So I'm not getting rid of it.
Well, no, but like I used to do make things out of beads,
Okay, yeah.
lanyards and jewelry and all that kind of stuff. I still have those beads,
Yeah.
and I've used those beads in a variety of other
Oh yeah.
things that are
Yeah.
not what I originally had,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that I think is a big part of it is being able to draw the line at some point. Say, okay, this is something that I haven't done, and I'm unlikely to
Yeah.
to rekindle interest in. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
Of course, then there's this junk. Like I was looking, I've got when I was putting the Christmas decorations back. Which, by
Yeah.
the way, it's the other thing. You got to purge your Christmas decorations every year,
Oh
otherwise you end
yeah.
up with way
Yeah.
too many.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Christmas decorations, I was putting them back, and I saw like three keyboards, the old plug-in keyboards
Oh yeah.
on
Right.
my computer sitting there. And I'm like, do I need any of those? And like, I might need one because I actually do have three computers that are sitting out there too.
Yeah, I did. I went through and did all my cables and stuff, and some of the cables were like, oh my gosh, remember the old printer? I can't remember what they're like parallel ports, those big wide things. I'm like,
Serial ports and parallel ports, yeah, all that stuff.
go, this can go. I just had a bunch of like,
32 pins and all the different kind of pins, and yeah.
yeah, serial cables.
Well,
Like we don't
I
need.
still have VGA cables for monitors, and
I mean, there's a
I've got
potential it's
projectors.
but you don't need a VGA cable anymore. You don't need Cat5 Ethernet cables anymore. You just don't need.
KVM switches. I've got KVM switches. All these things that at one point you needed because the tech didn't do it for you.
Yeah, right. But now, if you really need it, you can go on Amazon and probably get it in 2 days, right? For super
Well,
cheap.
yeah, but then it'll have spy software on it.
Yeah, yeah. At some point, though, you gotta clear it because it holds you back. It's like all these little tiny threads that are holding you, and it's like it's amazingly freeing when you finally let some of this stuff go. And sometimes you're gonna make a mistake. You go, man, I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't let that go. And
But
but you still live.
that's the other thing is I really like the minimalist idea
Hmm.
of buying something once high quality
Yeah,
so you never have to buy it again,
yeah.
right? Not having 15 versions of it
Right, right,
that
right.
are, from whatever,
Yeah,
from China, from Harbor Freight, from whatever, cheapo,
yeah,
Walmart.
yeah.
So the other day I was looking, I get fed a lot of pocket knife videos on YouTube because I
Oh,
have
cool.
several pocket knives. And one guy, and someone was doing a review of this Walmart pocket knife that everyone's going on and on about how great it is. And I'm like, oh, it's only $7. Oh, I could buy that. And I'm thinking, why do I need a 50th pocket knife or
Yeah,
whatever I'm on? I don't know what
right,
number I'm
right,
on.
right. Yeah.
I don't.
You don't. Yeah. You don't.
What need is that filling?
I don't know. I think you gotta think through this stuff. I think this is one point that I'm gonna do more of in the new year too. Another little thing on my list is I'm gonna write more because in writing, that's the way you think. Because people
Yeah.
are so worried about what their notebook looks like. I'm like, it's for nobody except for you. In fact, when you get done with it, just you could throw all that stuff away. I mean, it's not even needed anymore. It's just
Well,
part of the process to get to a final thought.
and I think if you just have a notebook and you write stuff in the notebook and not carry about any kind of format, even,
Yeah,
right? So if you want to have a couple things, what I'm grateful for, what I'm planning for the day, you can have a couple of those basic things. But
yeah.
no, I really like. I'm looking through here, like I have a whole page here where I was trying to break down, values and beliefs,
Okay, yeah,
and I just started writing line by line. So this is how I think. This is what I think about this. This is
yeah.
what I think about that. Well, is storytelling important? Is it okay to market to someone, to sell to someone? All those types of things in here. The idea that I believe people are basically good. I value logic and analysis, those types of things.
Yeah,
And I was trying to use the word value or believe
yeah,
because they're different things,
yeah.
right? Your values, and then if you have a belief, there's probably a value underneath it.
Probably so. Yeah, yeah.
If you actually believe something, it's probably because you value something in a particular way, and then you're interpreting stuff in a way to make that,
I
right?
think
And then a principle would be what? A belief?
I don't know. I need to research this. I do
The
know.
principle, the principle, I think, is the top level or the deepest level, but I think it requires the others to feed it.
I don't
I think
know.
it's principles, beliefs, and values. I
Yeah,
think.
I don't know. I got to think about that. This sounds like a really
And
interesting
your
concept for
principles,
the future.
your principles should not change much,
They
if
typically
at
don't
all,
change. Yeah.
right? Everything else, how you act, the things you do, all of those things can change, but they should still tie into your principles.
I think, a lot of people, when they go into a hard situation, they find themselves doing things that they're like, how did I get there? I thought I was better than this, or I thought a lot of stuff. Those are hard things, very difficult.
Well, I mean, doing the right thing, or well, who is it? Someone was talking about the example of gosh, which experiment it was, but they went into a room and they had like 8 people come into a room. 7 of them were part of the experiment. One of them was not.
Yeah.
And they would ask someone, they would show someone a picture and say, here's a picture of a line on the left and a line on the right. Are they the same length?
Oh,
And they
gotcha.
weren't,
Yeah.
right? They weren't the same length,
Yeah.
but they would make sure that the real person was the last person to answer. So all the actors or the experiment people would say, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. And when you're the 8th guy and everyone else has obviously seen it incorrectly and says it's the same, 30% of the time they said, yeah, it's the same,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you're changing your belief in what you see, or just to be part of the part
Be
of the
part of
group,
the crew.
right?
Yeah. See, I
So
don't.
what else will you morph in order to fit the circumstances?
Yeah, like the social pressure thing. I see. I At that surface level, I would argue all day long about that. I wouldn't fall for that. My thought is you guys are idiots. Let's get a ruler out and let's measure it. I'm going to prove to you it's the same length, or not the same.
Yeah, but so again, you'd be in the bigger crowd, the 70%. But I mean, what other aspects do we have where it's the other way, where 70% of the people would actually bend the reality, bend their interpretation, or bend their expression of reality just to achieve
Oh, I'm sure I would in certain cases. Yeah.
social homogeneity.
Yeah, because what you're doing is it's like it's not that big a deal. It's almost like we haven't just take it for the team, take one for the team on this one. Come on.
But this is where, I mean, isn't this where the whole idea of people who are backing or who are supporting the guy who killed the CEO of the healthcare company?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, killing's a bad thing, but
Well, yeah, yeah, but
right. I mean,
I
that's the whole thing. There is enough angst in there that people are socially saying, yeah, we know it's not a good thing, but I mean, to me, this is just a tweaking of the same thought process.
well, and this is why you got to really think through carefully, and it's so difficult. It's sitting on your couch with a notebook. It's very different than being in actual environment. It's much more difficult. But I think you've got to think, when will I kill and when will I won't, right? When will I sacrifice myself? I mean, what cases, how am I going to behave in certain cases?
I was so frustrated. I was watching a movie on Amazon yesterday, and it's a building that's under reconstruction, and a couple of families are there, and some terrorists come in, or bad guys come in, because there's old Nazi war paintings hidden in the walls or something like that. And they come in to fight, and so there's a female ex-military character in there, and it's like Die Hard, pretty
Yeah,
much, right? So it's the Die Hard movie. In fact, there's a lot of things that I just said was a ripoff from Die Hard.
yeah,
But I'm watching this, and every time that, like, you've got the regular people, not the ex-military person, who are in a situation where they got a gun and there's someone who's the bad guy there, and they don't pull the trigger.
yeah,
And I'm like, I get that I don't know that I could pull the trigger because
yeah,
I've never been in that situation, but logically I could pull the trigger.
yeah. Logically,
My
right?
logic would say, screw it. This person
Yeah,
is, because if I don't, if I let them gain control, I'm probably going to die no matter
yeah.
what.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
So that logic to me is like, it's self-defense.
Yeah,
Even though you're acting on the other person,
yeah,
in my mind it's self-defense.
yeah. Right, right. Yeah, yeah. These are just, man. These are difficult things, and I don't think
Now I
you.
don't know if I could, push comes to shove, it happens. I don't know if I could do it.
Depends on the case, right? It depends on how important it was to you. It depends on
Mhm.
a lot of stuff. Like, it depends on your state of mind. It depends on a ton of stuff. And I don't know that you really know until you get in that situation.
Well, I was also reading a book it was I think it was a sci-fi book, and there were people in there who were trying to get someone to do something, and they threatened the family of this person, someone who works in a secret government organization, and they found out about it, and they want them to introduce some bad code into a computer or
Oh,
something
there you
like
go.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
they threatened to kill they've kidnapped the family, and they threatened to kill the family.
yeah,
All right, so I understand there's all these emotions in here, and right now I'm not feeling those emotions. What I'm feeling is logic, and logic to me dictates, if they're willing to kill for this,
yeah,
the negative impact of what they're going to do is drastically worse than one family.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so by the numbers, you should report it and go to the police and do whatever happens. So this is where I have a hard time with movies and stuff, because I'm wondering, is everyone going to default to the emotional aspect, or are some people going to overcome it? And almost it's a storyline gimmick. They always give in, right? They always give in because to protect their family, even though they know their family's going to die.
yeah, yeah,
You're right. And I'm like, is this really what happens? That old a train's going down the track, and there's 10 people on the track,
yeah,
and you can divert it and kill one guy, or
yeah,
let it go and kill 10 people.
yeah,
One of them you take action and one guy dies. The other one you take no action and 10 people die.
yeah, yeah,
Right? I mean, to me, it's all by the numbers.
yeah,
You are the responsible party, regardless of if you take action or not. You are the responsible party. But some people would argue that since you didn't take action, you're free of any responsibility.
you're free. Yeah.
Yeah. If God or the universe put them in a situation where they were going to die, they were going to die.
Well, it depends on
Instead of
what
looking at it
you.
as like, maybe the situation was, will you save those 9 of those
Yeah,
people?
you save them. Yeah, it's you can get yourself tied up in knots with this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And so I don't know. I think you just got to figure out, what do you stand for? What are you willing to die for? What are you willing to live for? I mean,
that's
I think you never
tough.
know for sure. Well, yeah, it's super tough,
I mean,
actually.
given that most of the country has never been in a situation that's life threatening,
Yeah,
it's tough for someone to say to put themselves in a mindset to consider a life threatening situation.
yeah, yeah. I know. I guess you got to talk to people that have killed people before, then, right? They're a very different kind of breed, actually. I mean, I talked to all these guys training me. I go, how many people have you killed? And they're like, oh my God, I don't know, lots. I mean, I know Tim Kennedy. He has a video where he was talking about killing people with, like, at night, for like 8 hours a night, with like a thermal imager, just splashing rounds into people, actually, night after night after night, actually. It's
Have
like,
you ever asked any of these special forces guys about the guy who killed the CEO?
no, no, no. I haven't talked to them in a couple of years. You have to go to a
Okay.
class.
No, because the reason why I wonder is I think a big thing that shocked the people who saw it was just the way he nonchalantly
Yeah.
shot the guy, right?
Well,
Because I think most of us would be like, oh, it's killing, it's going to be tough, it's going to be emotionally draining, or whatever the impact of it is. And to him, it was just matter of fact the way he
yeah,
did it.
matter of fact, and one guy, it was so interesting because I watched a lot of videos. A lot of people were talking about the guns and the technology and what he was doing and why it was jamming or not jamming or whatever. And then one guy named Grand Thumb has this great YouTube channel, and he said, this guy's killed before. I can just tell. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but he's like, it's just, I think the thing is in their mind, I know some of these guys have talked about, and they don't really like talking about it too much, but they're like, I don't consider it killing because I consider it I'm saving lives. That's the way I view it in my head. And sometimes they have trouble though if they kill somebody and they kill a kid that they find out later or something. And killing is differently. It's one thing if you're in an airplane dropping a bomb or pushing a button on a Reaper drone halfway around the country, and it's just like a video game versus like up and close and personal. I mean, those are very different things.
Yeah. But is that kind so the idea in your mind that you're killing someone to save someone or save others,
Yeah, yeah.
is that really sane? And the reason why I say that is because I could see someone who's twisted who's killing people and using the exact same reasoning in their mind.
Well, we do it all the
Is that,
time.
or maybe not, I shouldn't say sane. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, it's. I think it's
Is
100%
it the
accurate.
reality they built to be comfortable with it, or is it actually, or is it true?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's true in
And,
that they did it.
and then the other thing is like, does it matter? Obviously,
I don't think it matters. I don't think.
right? Someone's dead. Someone, who knows? Maybe that person would have gone on to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and who knows whatever the other stuff. I don't know.
Probably not though, right? They're going to die anyways, right? I mean, everybody dies, so that's a very
But
nihilistic approach, right?
yeah, in a world of infinite universes, anything could have happened, right? So
I know it doesn't really matter that much. It's like I don't know. Maybe it depends. These are deep. I don't know.
but
How do
this is why it's that science fiction author that I like who writes these ethical questions all the time, like the old question, would you kill Hitler before he became the guy he was,
I know.
knowing that he would become the guy he was? Would you be wrong to do so if
Yeah,
you did?
yeah.
Right? And I think at the end of the day, yes, you would be wrong to do so. Does that necessarily mean if you take responsibility for your own actions, is that fine?
I don't know.
Like if someone who really who knew that that was going to happen or believed it was going to happen, let's say they studied history and they realized that this was the outcome for some
Yeah,
reason,
yeah,
um, and said, you know what, I'm going to do this and then I'll go to jail and for this, and they're willing to pay the price.
yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the guy that killed the CEO guy. I mean, he was on a mission, right? And it was carefully thought through. It was executed like really well. Not a lot of emotion. He almost got away if he just would have kept his mask on and stopped eating at McDonald's. I mean, he probably would have got
Stop
away.
flirting with the girls at Starbucks. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. It's like I know I've talked to people that have actually killed people before, and it bugs them, but it doesn't really bug them, right? I mean, they're thinking it's you can see the friction in their head because they're like, what I did was, and you can listen to Tim Kennedy talk about this on videos. It's like I saved my guys. What I did was good in that moment, but now what I did is I just perpetuated this hate thing, right? Because now the family of that dude that I just killed hates the United States, and I just made three more terrorists. I mean, I solved the short-term problem, but at what expense? And I'm like, and it's just, dudes like that, they just get put in situations that are like no-win situations. It's just not fair that we ask them to do that.
But somewhere in the chain of command, someone's decided it's okay to do that,
Yeah.
right? Because
Someone
they're not the ones. Someone put them there to do that.
someone put them there to do that. Yeah, but why, right? And
Yeah.
it's
So
probably
I,
not
I
a
I
good
guess
reason.
yeah. The question is, is the government or the military command aren't even really good at figuring out consequences of their actions? And I think there's first order consequences, which is what we usually concentrate on because that's
Yeah,
the immediate. But
yeah.
then there's second and third order
Oh
consequences.
yeah,
And
yeah.
is it okay to disregard those because we'll handle them later? And it may mean more of the same to handle them later. Or is it something that we should be considering? We poo-poo when government makes a decision and doesn't foresee the second and third level order
Right,
consequences of what they do,
right,
right? Oh,
right.
we're going to do price controls on the price of oil because it's getting too expensive. So they're going to regulate the price of oil. Well, suddenly it's not worth money to make gas anymore. So companies start getting out of the gas business, and suddenly there's no gas anymore, so the cost goes up. I mean, second order and third order consequences. Yes, you lowered the price for a short period of time, but what are the second and third order consequences of it?
Well, and a lot of these people, they don't think at that level. They think that I'm in service of my country. And I've had many militaries say, look, if somebody tells me to go shoot somebody or to go push the button and launch a nuke, I will absolutely do it.
But so, okay, not to belittle what they do, but they are a tool of the government
They're a
that
tool,
needs
they're a pawn.
to get
Yes.
what needs to happen, right? And you do not want your tools to act in an unpredictable way. Your tools
No.
should act as tools do. So
Yes.
yes, they need to do what they're told, whether they like it or not. And some of the consequences mean they have mental issues when they come back that need to be addressed, right? PTSD or some other aspect,
Many of them do. Yeah.
um, yeah, and if not, if they are able to come to terms with it, like it sounds like some of the people you're talking to about have been, then that's all the more power to them.
Well, I mean, you've got to believe that that's a bad human being, right? And I'll tell you, some of the stories he told me, there's some serious evil in this world. I mean, real evil. Like
Well, I
for
used to wonder, because like in World War II and World War One, part of the military's goal was to dehumanize the opposite
of
and
course.
the enemy, so that your soldiers were okay killing other humans,
Yeah,
basically,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So you need to demonize them and use derogatory terms
Yes.
and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
But in the world we're in today, where we're much more, I think, in the not in the current term of woke, but in the kind of older term of woke, with the idea that we're much more aware of kind of of people and differences and cultures and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
I would assume that one of the reasons we have so much more acknowledgement of PTSD is
Mm.
because we actually do have more PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've humanized the enemy to the point where people can't get out of I just killed another human being
Yeah,
in
he's
their
killed another
mind,
human being. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm assuming your special forces people have to be able to get around that in their own out of their own minds. The basic soldier, I don't know how they get put up with it. Yeah,
Well,
because if you condition someone to think poorly of someone, of another race or another group or another country, when
yeah.
they come back, do you deprogram them, or do they perpetuate those beliefs in society when they come back?
I don't know. I don't know. Most of the time, the military, they are good at getting you to kill, but they don't deprogram you. They're like, thanks, you're out of here. Thanks. Pick up your final check. Go to the VA if you have any trouble. If you have trouble sleeping,
Well, that's why hopefully most people don't have to kill anymore. I mean,
I hope not,
the
man.
sheer numbers of actual deaths on both sides is much less than we're talking World War One, World War Two. Right? We're not talking 50 million people dead in World War One.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just those numbers today would be crazy. I don't even know what are the numbers in Ukraine, like
I don't know. I don't really watch it.
200 a day. I mean, I'm not saying that's nothing, but compared to Civil War, World War One, World War Two,
Yeah. It's a
I
horrible
think.
thing. I mean, this is where you just get back to like, you know, each individual, each person, you and I, we've got good in us and we've got bad in us. And it's like we better just be feeding the good, right? Trying to suppress the bad as much as possible. But it's always there. It's like we always got the demon we've got to deal with.
Well, so and this is where I do like Jordan Peterson and others talk about what the dark triad, the
Yeah.
parts of your character. that could do the bad things,
Yeah, right.
and you need to control them. And society knows we need to control those aspects of personality,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they've tried to get rid of it through societal tools.
yeah,
But
right.
I think in the process, they've taken away the empowerment of the individual to learn the skills necessary to limit those.
Well, maybe.
So I think some of the addiction problems that we have today,
Oh, yeah.
some of the problems with porn, people not getting married, not having kids, all of these things to me come from uh, again unintended consequences of not building the individual skills and strength to have the character to withstand the painful aspects of life, the uncomfortable aspects of
Yeah.
life.
Well, and I think that's why you've got to go to jujitsu because it lets you get some of this aggression out in a very controlled, healthy way that's safe. I mean, you get little injuries, but nobody's going to get seriously hurt or anything like that. You know, and I think team sports, the competition, it sort of lets you get that out. Because I know whenever I'd go to jiu-jitsu, I'd be frustrated and I'd come home and I'd be like so happy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I sort of got all that bad stuff out in a controlled way, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the whole the way people make fun of each other in locker rooms, guys make fun of each other in locker
Mhm.
rooms, the idea of tribesmen going out and hunting, the idea of hazing
Yeah,
the new members of society.
yeah.
Everyone sees the bad parts of all this, but the actual aspect is it actually builds the confidence and the capability of the individuals involved.
Yes, yes, yes. And if you know, I mean, I think every man should know how to fight, right? I think every man should know how to kill, right? And at the same time, it'd be dangerous. But at the same time, like Jordan Peterson talks about this, but you also need to learn how to love and how to control that, right? Because if you don't actually have the skill to do any sort of violence, I mean, are you really a good person? I mean, I'd rather have somebody that kills but contains themselves, right? That's a person that's more in control to me.
Well, that's a whole person,
Yeah, whole.
right? I think what happens is if we look at the whole, there's the good and the bad is
Yeah,
part of the whole, and then that person chooses to live the good side or whatever, that actually means something. When society strips out the bad and all you're left with is the good, then you're missing a whole part of people.
well, whole parts, yeah, and then it comes out in very unhealthy ways, you know.
I mean, when people don't realize, uh, like when we were shocked when Russia invaded Ukraine,
Yeah,
right? It was the first time we'd seen that kind of warfare on that large a country, from that
yeah,
larger country in decades. And the concept of, wow, you could actually, you know, people could actually be dying in a modern society. I mean,
yeah,
imagine today if like 10 miles from where you are, there was a battlefront going on.
yeah, right, right.
What would that do to your city, to your society, to your local thing? I mean, to me mentally, I don't know how we get there. And I don't think any normal American can put that in their heads, can
Yeah,
can
no, right,
figure
right.
that out. Like, you're worried about your cell phone bill, you're worried about your car and getting the oil changed and all that. And I'm like, no, I'm worried about how the hell do I bug out if something goes on?
Yeah,
What am I taking with me?
yeah,
How and when I'm taking stuff with me, how much of it is for survival and how much of it is stuff that, oh, I need to bring my musical instruments because, I
yeah,
mean, let's be real.
yeah,
Putting yourself in that mindset. The people who live through the fires here in Southern California that we get all the time,
yeah.
right? And they have to make a call, like they pack their car and they get ready to go. I'm like, that's probably a good exercise to do for the average person.
Exactly,
Just
right.
assuming you've got 2 hours to leave,
Yeah.
what would you do?
Yeah, what do you do? Well, I mean, that's why, you got to prep a little bit. I mean, you don't want to be like a crazy prepper, but I mean, for here, there's times when maybe a storm will come in, an ice storm, maybe you're out, maybe power goes out for a couple days. So you got to at least be prepped enough to handle a couple days. But I will tell you though, I hear this in many, many places. This what do you call it? This veneer of niceness that we have in society is very thin. Many people say it'll last for 3 days. If anything goes, people sleep, and you see it all the time, right? I mean, in natural disasters, you see the very best of people coming out, and you see the very worst of people coming out.
There was a book, I think it's called Dry? Yeah, Dry by Neil Shusterman.
Oh, okay.
He's written a lot of interesting books. It's a science fiction story based here. So Mission Viejo High School, the kids are students in Mission Viejo High School,
Nice.
and basically the drought gets so bad they shut off the water.
Yeah, right.
What happens?
What
So
happens?
then, the military comes and brings in desalination trucks and but then they get overrun by riots because people want water faster than they can produce it. So they
Yeah,
actually damage the thing that's producing the water.
yeah,
Yeah, and so there's riots, there's breakdown society, there's guns, there's shooting, there's people going to Big Bear to get away, all this kind
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah,
Forest fires take over. It's actually, I enjoyed the book a lot.
yeah,
Part of it why I enjoyed it was because it was based here in Orange County,
yeah,
but
right, right.
it was really interesting
Yeah,
because it really shows you, really if you ran out of water, like depending on how much notice you had,
yeah,
you fill your bathtub water is going to last how long? You
yeah,
got your rain barrels, maybe they got water in them outside,
yeah,
right? But you really think of how much, how long would you last? And then drinking water, right? Obviously,
yeah.
how would you create drinking water here?
Yeah, I
Right?
don't know that you could. I mean, you got your basically you got your hot water heater. You got like anywhere from probably 30 to 50 gallons. That could last you a long time, you know?
Yep. Well, I've got, several cases of water in various places
Yeah,
around the house,
very
and
good.
I even keep, I our old suitcases. Instead of throwing them out, I say, okay, let's take old clothes,
Yeah,
throw them in the suitcase, and I throw them out in the tool shed.
yeah,
So I got a suitcase with our old clothes in them in the tool
yeah,
shed, right? I got all the camping equipment's out in the tool shed. Now the problem I've got is my tools are in the garage. So if something were to happen, like an earthquake, and it actually shifted the door frame so I couldn't open it,
yeah,
getting the tools might be tough.
yeah, yeah. Well, yes, you got to prep. You got to have some sort of crowbar or wrecking bar or something so you can access stuff. But I think the closest example to this we've recently had is COVID. And people are freaking out over toilet paper. It's like I just, that was the big drama. Nobody could get toilet paper, right? And then
Well, it changed our supply structure because we always had about one open case of Costco toilet paper and then like
yeah,
one case of
yeah,
toilet paper, right, in the garage. I'd say now we have at least two and a half. We have an extra one all the time, so we always have two complete plus whatever is open
yeah,
all
yeah.
the time.
And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, toilet paper is not necessary for survival, right? You can survive without toilet paper, actually.
What do you use?
Well, I don't know. I'd figure
Because
something out.
water becomes the secondary thing, because you could
Yeah,
always use water,
water.
right? But
Yeah,
then what happens when water becomes so we talk about losing power, and
yeah.
yes, the communications and all that kind of crap happens, but water and
Um,
sanitation are massive issues.
Well, and that's you gotta, if I really cared, I'd probably think through this sort of stuff or whatever like that. But I'm not really a prepper. I haven't prepped other than just having just like a week or two of food. I think you got to really sit down and think. It's like, okay, what are the things that I really need? And here,
I love the prepper mentality.
it's
I
kind of
think it's
cool.
so cool. I really think one of the guys I used to work with in HR, he said his brother was uh was a prepper, but I mean like every conspiracy theory belief kind of guy, right?
Yeah, I know.
Anti-vax everything, government's this, government's that sort of thing. But
Yeah,
apparently he's a real prepper
yeah,
and set up to live for years off the grid if need be.
yeah. And I don't know that you know, I mean, what are you prepping for, right? If you're prepping for a winter storm, the power goes out for 2 or 3 days. I mean, of course, everybody should be doing that. If we have a nuclear war and a nuclear holocaust and you're prepping, I'm just going to die, not prepping at that level.
Yeah, so it does well that's the interesting thing is how many people have enough of a will to survive to actually get through a Holocaust scenario, post
Almost
an
nobody,
Armageddon
almost
scenario.
nobody, almost nobody.
I
You-
mean,
You'll, you'll wipe out 90% of the people in the first month.
yeah, well, people will start without the technology. I mean, and so this is where all that YouTube knowledge comes into play.
Exactly. I mean,
Because
here it
I
gets
know it can be done. I've never done it before, but I watched it on YouTube. I can figure this out.
I mean, here it gets hot in the summer. Just imagine the fact that if power went out and you didn't have AC, how many people would just die from lack of AC, from heat stroke or people marginalized on I mean, it'd be
But
horrible.
but people lived there before there was AC, right?
Yes. Yeah, there wasn't
How?
always AC. they just sucked it up. They just suffered. I mean, I remember not having AC when I would come back here. It was miserable. But you didn't really know about AC, so you didn't really think about it, you know?
So, because I look at like countries, again, constraints,
Yeah.
when they don't have the money and they don't have the power to be able to have those things, they find other ways to build, right? So
Yeah.
if you understand that every night when the area cools down, there's a breeze that comes through. You
Yeah,
build your
right.
house to be
Yeah.
oriented towards the breeze,
Yeah.
or you build eaves to give you the porch around the house. Or do you
Yeah.
have a porch around your house?
We have a back porch, like a back deck.
I always like those. In the South, they always have those big, massive porches that would go around the house.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything like that. Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
think it'd be so cool. I mean, I've designed houses in my head that if I had the time and the money, I'd build.
Yeah. Yeah. But it depends. I mean, I guess, at some point you got to think, what like risk, what's actually going to happen. I'd say you go back in 10 years in time and then just see what happens and then prep for that. Like I know the power went out here for like maybe 1 day or 2 days or something. It was just lucky it wasn't really hot, it wasn't really cold, so it wasn't really a significant sort of thing. But it does, when you things get shut off, you realize, oh my gosh, how am I going to cook? And it's like, well, we didn't really need to cook, so we didn't cook. It's crazy because you don't really think of the impact until it gets shut off, and you're like, oh, this is a bigger deal than I thought actually.
Well, I took that the CERT training, the Community Emergency Response Team
Oh,
training
that sounds cool.
here.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool, and they have exercises. I think I told you we did an active shooter exercise with the Irvine Police Department
Oh, how fun.
at the
Yeah.
mall here. So at the mall where we were walking around the other day,
Yeah, yeah.
in fact, right down that strip where we saw the kids playing on
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah.
jungle gym thing, that was right there. And so they had like about 100 of us, milling around while there was an event going on, and people were running around shooting blanks and all. It was
Oh,
interesting,
how fun. Yeah, it's fun. I know
but
basically I
the
took like a like
one of
a
the captains of the fire department, who and the fire department is the one who does the CERT training. He was basically saying he buys emergency supplies and he keeps them out in his tool shed.
yeah.
And every 5 years or so, the family goes out and camps in the backyard, and he goes through the supplies and
Oh, there
eats
you go.
them
Yeah.
because they go bad. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's very uncomfortable. But I mean, a lot of people would die. I mean, they could die from simple things, just from getting caught in infection. I mean, just simple
oh,
stuff.
that's part of that book too, by the way. No medicines, people dying from infection, people drinking stagnant water who can get
Yeah.
sick and dysentery and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It was so funny because I was watching a video, and I need to wrap up in a couple of minutes. I got like a hard stop at like uh,
Okay.
5 o'clock for me. But it was interesting. It was like selection of these like tier one operators, right? And the things that mess them up more than anything else is really simple stuff. And I had no idea, like just cleanliness, like maybe not cleaning when you go to the bathroom, actually, chafing. They said they'd be surprised at how many people just dropped out because of these simple little things, like maybe not being careful, trying to move through fast and twisting an ankle on a brand or like a piece of wood on the ground or something. So a lot of people are washed out from just really simple things. Like fascinating.
You know, all these things that were major obstacles in years past
Yeah.
have been integrated into society to a point where we don't even think of them anymore.
No, because and we're weak. We're super weak, right?
Well, I often think, like, right now I got a Ziploc bag here,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, imagine in the 1600s how much this would be worth.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I'm like, I look at the stuff we throw away in our packaging,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, in some ways, I'm like, is there a way for me to reuse this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not worth it to do so. But the
Uh-huh.
thought to me is like, yeah, imagine just the technology and the knowledge it took to create this glass bottle,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And the fact that they can be mass produced inexpensively.
Inexpensive. Yeah. Cheap.
I mean, that to me is just amazing when you think about that.
Yeah.
And
Life.
the world we live in today has that. And so, anytime we talk about, saving the planet and greenhouse gases and all that stuff,
Yeah.
I look at something like that and go, look at everything you have around you.
Yeah.
And that's all done through technology, industrialization, science,
Yeah.
all of that. And anytime you go against any of those principles, you're basically attacking the foundation of what we have today.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're
Well,
willing to go back and be a hermit and live and farm and live sustenance living, then I'm more inclined to say you live your beliefs.
yeah. Well, that's the social justice warrior, right? They do their social work from a keyboard. Right? It's like they have no idea what's going on or how easy they've got
The
it.
level of effort, the level of danger, I remember. So you remember, was it last week or the week before that in was it Germany, the guy who ran down the crowd
Oh,
and
I remember seeing that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so I remember that happened a few years ago in Nice or somewhere in France, I think. Same thing. Someone did the same type of thing, and I'm like, you've got this weapon,
Yeah,
this 2-ton weapon you're driving around.
yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised it hasn't been done a hell of a lot more
I know.
often.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I remember there was an old guy who's probably too old to be driving. He went through the Santa Monica farmers market and ended up killing a bunch of people
Mm,
and didn't even realize it. To me, it's like we take these things for granted, but there's so much danger that we've learned to live with because we've got controls around it.
yeah.
Imagine if those controls just disappeared.
Well, and that's what I was talking about before. This social fabric around our society, it is very thin, right? It didn't take much to break it.
Think about food and all the rules and how they produce food to
Oh
be
my God.
safe so we don't get sick off of them, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
then we look at these E. coli bacteria breakouts and all that kind of stuff, and you
Yeah,
realize those are rules that that the government says and these people have to follow, and there's some kind of an enforcement arm. But imagine a world where there wasn't a centralized person who was organizing that.
yeah, I
How
know.
could you trust that the lettuce you bought at this store is safe compared to this other store? These are all things that we don't have to worry about today.
Yeah, very little. We can focus on other things. And then a lot of people
But
say that since our society is so easy and we've got it really easy, now we focus more on pleasure and then we just get nutso, right?
well, we yeah, pleasure and by extension feelings.
Yeah, right.
So pleasure then because well, this feels good.
Yeah,
And I should always feel good because
yeah,
I live in a rich society. I
right.
should always feel good, which
Yeah,
means anytime anyone says anything that makes me feel bad,
yeah,
that's bad too.
yeah, right. We got to stop that. Yeah,
So suddenly it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I can eat chocolate and candy all the time because I'll just have medication to fix it,
yeah, right.
right? And now it's like, well, now you make me feel bad because I'm fat, so now you can't call me fat anymore
Now they call me
because
back.
I feel bad.
You hurt my feelings. Yeah, and then we just get weaker and weaker and weaker as a society,
Well, and then of course the car is too small to fit me because I weigh 400 pounds. So now the car companies are racist or fattest or whatever the term is. I mean, it's where does that stop? Where do you take responsibility for yourself? Where does the self-awareness occur that maybe I'm the one who's outside of the social norm here?
Yeah, yeah, I know. I don't know where. I'm definitely on that side. That's why I think Chris, in the new year, both of us have to intentionally put ourselves in hard situations, that are safe. Go to jujitsu, go to the gym, make your legs burn, right? I mean, don't be stupid, don't hurt yourself, but I mean, sweat a little bit, make it burn a little bit. You're gonna be okay. Yeah, we got to get toughened up because so we can because otherwise you get the wind blows too much, right? People they'll just die and fold. And you've seen this. I mean, that's why you see the worst and the best in people in natural disasters. Mother Nature doesn't care about you. The ocean, it doesn't care about you. I mean, David
Mhm.
Marquet talked about this, just the ocean. He goes, just in the submarine, just moving the thing around in the ocean, it was just hard. It's dangerous, right? There's a lot of ways the ocean will kill you. There's a lot of ways in the submarine you can get killed, right? And so you've got to be really careful. You got to protect yourself. My God, my house protects me. It's like I can literally, it doesn't matter what's going on outside. I just hit a little button, click, 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 have the temperature, anything I want, hot, too cold. I want it more humid, less humid. It's just crazy, right? Lights on. It's like awesome. And I'm weak because of it.
But if as long as first awareness, first thing has to
Just
happen before
awareness.
you can change your behavior. I think there needs to be awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness that you could get hurt. Awareness that these things are out there. Awareness that your house does this for you is important. I was thinking as you're talking, I drive down a road at 50 miles an hour, and there's a car coming the other direction at 50 miles an hour the other direction, and there's a line of paint that
Well,
separates us.
paint. Yeah, right.
How come I trust that other person to not kill me?
Just because you've done it so many times and typically nothing bad
But
happens.
think about what that says is it doesn't even occur to me when I'm driving today, because
Yeah.
I've been driving for 20 some odd years, that that is a danger,
There's a certain amount of danger to it, yeah. But it's
right?
been so it's been made so safe that we don't really, we don't really think about it anymore.
But that to me is the problem is the fact that we don't even think about the things that that are still potentially dangerous
Yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah, yeah, we've gotten rid of them to a point. Yeah, and we talked about this in the past too. People being afraid of letting their kids go out on their own and do things, and and I'm like, is the world that much more dangerous? Because it seems to me like everything that was dangerous is safer today. We've made it safer. We've regulated it. We've built things. We've improved it. So, is the world more dangerous than it was when we were kids?
I think the world's very dangerous right now. I mean, there's more crime going on, there's more human trafficking, there's more sex slaves than ever before in history. So yeah, it's
There's
dangerous.
more. Or there's more reporting on it.
There's more. And it might be because of increased population, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's true too.
rampant.
Part of it is percentages, right? If the percentages remain the same, then it's not more. It's more numerically, but it's not
It
more.
could be, yeah, yeah, but still, it's yeah,
Because the
it,
other thing is, with our ability to get video and information from every phone and every person out there today,
yeah.
stuff doesn't. We capture stuff that wasn't captured before,
Well,
at
information
least,
flows much quicker, no
right?
doubt.
And then
Yeah,
a video has so much more impact than a story,
yeah, oh
than
yeah,
a written
yeah,
story,
yeah.
right? So I do wonder how much of what we see is an increase in the numbers and how much of it is actually an increase in awareness.
Well, I don't know. That's interesting.
Right? Awareness is then attention or focus,
Yeah, right.
right? And so without that awareness, we don't focus on it, which means that it's a smaller part of our thinking,
Yeah, we don't see it. Yeah, right, right. Yeah,
right?
I don't
The
know.
fact that car accidents kill more people than what all the other diseases out there. I mean, we look at it at that, right? Look at COVID was what number third or whatever, number three or whatever for killing overall, or is it number eight? I forgot what the number is, but
I don't know. I mean, it didn't. I mean, it killed a lot of people, but it wasn't like horrid. It's
still,
not like,
heart disease kills more people,
oh my God.
right?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Because we eat crappy
we
food.
look at the numbers and you just because it's not in our mind, because it's just part of society, it's part of the background
Yeah,
noise. We don't even
yeah,
see it.
yeah. Right.
Right? If someone were to just repeatedly remind us every day how many people died today because of heart disease,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It
yeah,
happens all the time. Right.
think about how often we were told about COVID, how many people were dying every day. What if we were told every day about how many people died from lung cancer?
Yeah.
What if
Yeah.
we were, all of these things, if they were in our public eye and we were made aware of it all the time, would be more of a focus and we worry more about them.
I think so, but I think we are made aware of it. I mean, I don't know that anybody doesn't know that heart attacks happen all the time, but it's like, oh, that's the other guy. That's not going to happen to me. There's always a sort of there's, and this is, this is a topic I do need to close out in 2 minutes, Chris, but I
Yep.
think we should talk about this in the future, which you just spurred this in my mind. Like how much, what's the actual risk versus how much risk you feel? And there was a
We
lot
can
of
talk about risk assessment because I love risk assessment,
that would be really interesting.
right? The impact of something and the likelihood of something are two different things,
Yeah. And you
right?
may
The impact could
feel
kill you, but the likelihood could be so low that you don't need to spend any effort on it.
right. And it depends on how much you feel. Like how do you feel in danger or not? You may not be in danger, but you could feel safe, but you're actually in danger, right? It's like I think as long as you get those aligned, it's like the number one killer for me is I don't know what I don't know. That's the dangerous part, right? I don't realize what an idiot I am. I mean, that can kill you. But if as long as you know you're an idiot, at least you're kind of safe, right?
Yeah, that mitigates the risk somewhat. But then what can you do to mitigate to further mitigate it, right?
Get
That's the question.
smarter, get trained, right? Prepare, think through things.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking through things, slowing down and thinking through something
Yeah.
before you let the emotion make your decision for you.
Yes, that's exactly right. You got to use logic and critical thinking not how I feel, but what actually
So
is.
maybe that's one thing. If you, can you think of in the upcoming week, think of things, something that you heard that you had to put through that process. So you usually I
Oh,
hear it on the news or something like that, but when you hear something that doesn't sound right, how you addressed it in your mind,
yeah, that's
what
interesting.
steps you went through.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Next time we talk, let's talk about that. That's really interesting.
I'll pay attention to the news more and figure out what ticked me off this time.
There you go. And then I think next time too, maybe we could bring up some pet peeves because I know that's
Oh
a
yes, my pet peeves, and they have to do with Ziploc bags. That's why
okay.
it's
There
here.
we go. All right. Well, let's break that up next time. All right. In that
Alrighty,
case, I'm gonna go eat
good
dinner.
talking to you.
Good
See you
talking to you.
next week.
Happy New Year. See ya.
Happy
Bye.
New Year.